You signed a contract saying that you were okay with that. Are you still okay with that?
A lot of what they tell you leading up to the experience is how it's not like that.
What made you want to break the silence?
I think I have a moral obligation to tell the truth. I think they knew when I was in there that if anybody was going to tell the truth about the experience, that I was the most likely person to ever do it.
So there's been a litany of accusations about Netflix behind the scenes. Can you attest to any of that?
They are listening to everything I say, and I'm saying things that are critical of them as we're doing this. Mm-hmm. And you do feel like you're a little bit in prison.
They edited it to look like you were walking out in the middle of a date.
Yes.
Did that happen?
No.
So it's not real?
I think it's a lot closer to professional wrestling than it is to real.
Are you planning on suing Netflix? Would you ever recommend this experience to anybody?
If you're going to do it, I think you should watch this.
Okay, Matthew, thanks for coming on. I can't believe you're here doing this. How you feeling?
Great.
Yeah, you ready to just get this out and get it over with?
Let's put a bow on it.
Yeah, and I really feel like you mean that when you say I want to put a bow on this portion of my life. You want to tell your story and you want to move on.
Yes.
So what prompted you to get on Love is Blind? Was this a career thing? Was there a motivation behind it? Why do this? It doesn't seem at all like your personality.
Well, I got reached out by somebody who used to go to my school in college. Okay. I went through the process having really no intent to ever do it.
Okay.
And then they offered me to do it. And then you're left with a decision to make, whether I'm going to do this or not. And I was going to do it, but a lot of my friends and family are like, oh, you got to do it. It's a good show. And I'm single. I can do it. I'm like, well, screw it. I'll just go for it. And that's basically it.
And what was the intention? Did you think, oh my gosh, this is a real possibility that I could fall in love here? Or what did you think going into it?
I mean, I was open to everything. At the very least, I saw it was a great challenge to try to grow as a person and get better at communicating with women. I mean, the experimental aspect of this, to me, I find very intriguing.
Yeah.
Talking 15 different women through a wall, see how well you do. But
a lot of people wonder whether that's real or not. Do you actually connect with people through a wall like that?
I would say yes.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Was it easy to narrow down from 15 to a couple girls within the first few dates?
I mean, you only get 10 minutes with each girl the first date.
What?
So it's very quick. So you really don't have a ton of time to build a relationship. And then they slowly decrease who you go on dates with from there.
They pick for you, you don't pick?
Yes.
Wait, explain that. That's really crazy.
Well, they're supposed to pick. You're supposed to do a ranking of 1 through 15 of who you would like to see again. And they're all supposed to do a ranking. And then from there, they're supposed to match up who likes each other the most. But I mean, you don't really know if that's happening or not. But I felt like the people that I had connections with is ultimately who I was talking to most of the time.
Sounds like a sorority recruitment process.
It felt like that.
Yeah,
yes.
That's so interesting. Okay, so what were you doing before Love is Blind that circumvented you into this world? Anything?
Not really. I mean, sure, some of my relationships weren't working out. And if you had to take a collective opinion of why they probably weren't from my past relationship, it was probably the communication aspect of it.
Okay.
So it was kind of intriguing the fact that I would even get an offer to do this, which is something that I felt like if I was going to be a better partner, it would be this.
Yeah, so you're going to learn how to communicate on the show, essentially?
I guess so.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel like a lot of people that are cultishly following this show would look at that and say, wow, I'm confused. Why were you not prepared to get married if you would go on a show like that? If it came to the point where you were going to get married, do you think you would get married on a show like this?
I was open to the idea, but I was also realistic about, hey, I'm never going to actually see this person and I'm going to propose to them, and I've never proposed to anybody before.
Yeah.
I went in knowing that the likelihood of getting engaged was relatively slim.
Yeah. What do you think was it about your story that drew casting directors to you?
Well, I think that I was different.
What's your name?
Matthew.
Matthew, hey. I'm Jessica.
I have questions written down and they're numbered 1 through 15.
Okay.
So if you want, you can pick a number.
Give me 10.
What is something you think you excel at in relationships?
I wasn't very comfortable with the cameras and the fame and all the stuff that came along with it. It was something that I had to get accustomed to. And I felt like everybody else there was something that they thrived in. And it was more something like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, having a camera stuck on my face for 16 hours a day.
And I don't need you to respond to this, but I do think that a lot of people who watched the show saw your ex, AD, go to Clay, her fiance's home, and see TikTok was on his vision board. And being famous was essentially on his vision board. Are you saying that there were a lot of people with, not necessarily Clay, I'm not going to ask you to name names, but people with malintent in that way?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people there was incentive that they would want the fame and the adulation from people.
And was fame something you were ever looking for out of this? No?
And I know some people probably won't believe me, but my safety net of going through the process is that if you didn't get engaged, you were told that you weren't going to be on the show. So I thought that I could go through the process, hopefully find a connection, and
Who told you that?
The people, the producers.
Okay, so producers told you explicitly, if you do not get engaged, you will not be on the show.
Not explicitly.
Okay.
But it was told that the likelihood that you would be ever shown is incredibly slim.
So you're incentivized to get engaged or just not be shown.
Of course.
But you're an exception to that.
I was doing it a completely different way than everybody else.
And that definitely got you noticed. So let's talk about going into the pods. Tell me what an average day was like going in there.
Well, the first day was probably the longest day of my life. I mean, you're starting at like 9 a.m. I think we went till like 10 o'clock at night. And that's the day I'm wearing the blue suit and with my spreadsheet of questions. But it was 10-minute dates with 15 women back to back to back to back. And it's incredibly difficult to build a connection with somebody when there's a wall there and you can't see the person. So just typical communication styles, such as like sarcasm or humor, you have to be more careful of what you're saying because it may be received differently. And that was something that I learned after the first few days. I'm like, I'm making jokes and it's really not landing. And I slowly got more comfortable with the way that I need to present myself. Plus, I mean, I brought a spreadsheet and everybody else is drinking. And I knew going in that I probably would have to be a little bit different in my approach because I didn't have the ability to connect with people because I was consuming alcohol. So I knew I had to be a little bit different, and I was okay with doing that because I was interested in the girls that maybe would want something like that.
Yes. I do want to talk about the drinking though. What was the drinking like in the pods in particular?
Well, certainly I think anybody that's been sober in a situation where there's drinking, it's even more difficult because you feel like an outcast because you're not participating in the same things that everybody else is. But not everybody was drinking heavily. There's certainly a few of the guys and the girls that weren't doing that. But of course, I mean, drinking was heavily involved in a lot of the circumstances. And some of the guys had too much fun one night and the girls got a little upset. They were like falling asleep and stuff in the dates. And I knew I could pick up a little steam the next day because of that incident.
Interesting. How many drinks are you drinking?
I mean, you'd have a handful of like maybe one a day. And some of the guys I was trying to get not to drink because I was concerned about like, hey, you're going to be recorded on this. Don't say something stupid and have it played out in front of millions of people. And I got criticized by production for trying to police the drinking and some of the commentary because some of the commentary was boys being boys. But some of the other guys were having fun. And if I was 28 or 30 and did this, I might have went about the process completely different than I did being 36. But then eventually I kind of like, hey, these guys are on their own and I got to do what's best for me and focus on what I'm doing here. Was production forcing people to drink or really encouraging it? I wouldn't say forcing, no. Okay. Did they encourage me to drink? Yes. Did they encourage everyone to drink more than they felt like maybe the limits were? I didn't see it, but it was certainly readily available for whoever wanted it. Okay. Interesting. It's almost like no matter how much they edited, they couldn't edit out the fact that you wanted to leave the pods. You did not want to be there anymore. So you were encouraging both of the girls you were dating at the time, let's go. Well, let's get out of here. What was your mindset behind that? Well, once I got in there and I kind of was aware of the environment and what was going on, I was concerned because I didn't want to spend any time with some of these people. Not the participants, but some of the people that are producing the content based on some of the things that were said and encouraged on my end. So can you explain a little bit more about that? Well, for example, I mean, you're being filmed for 16 hours a day under these fluorescent lights and you really have no time to do anything else. Like they won't let you take a 5-minute walk outside. Anytime lunch is provided, you had to eat it inside. So one day I was feeling claustrophobic, getting headaches from all the lights. I'm like, hey, I got to get outside and take a walk. They said no. So I said, well, I'm going to leave because I'm not going to do that. They came back and gave me 5 minutes outside, which is kind of ridiculous when I say that I even like put up with that. But I mean, those are the type of things that you're dealing with consistently. So as I'm communicating with AD, Amber, Sunny, and some of the girls. I'm like, hey, this isn't right. Some of the stuff going on here is not okay. And I think that we should consider leaving together because we can start our relationship right now and not have to be a part of this.
So you really liked them. It wasn't phony or faux. You really liked these girls, but you recognized what was happening around you, is what you're saying.
Yes, and I just didn't like the potential legal obligation to get engaged and to get married and have my family and everybody else involved when I knew what these people were doing. And I wanted no part of it.
You keep saying and alluding to what these people were doing. What specifically was production doing, or what were you seeing? What were patterns you were seeing that really disturbed you?
I mean, just even like having to ask permission to use the restroom all day. Like, it's just a really uncomfortable feeling to be an adult and having to ask another adult to use the restroom. Like, you just have no freedom whatsoever. And you do feel like you're a little bit in prison. And just knowing these people, what they're saying to you, what somebody else is saying to you, it's like a constant manipulation. Mm-hmm. And like, people are leaving the set and you don't get to say goodbye. Like, some of the women that I'm dating like are having a really difficult time, like crying consistently and just having intense emotional moments. Mm-hmm. And it's just hard when you care about people and then they're hurting and you're just talking to them through a wall.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of transparency now. It's been seasons and seasons and seasons of Bachelor producers kind of pulling women aside and manipulating them on their end. Like, you should do this, or you should talk to X person about this. Did you see any of that manipulation going on in Love is Blind world? Is there male producers that come back there to tell you guys, you should do this, you should talk to this person, you should bring up this with this person? Is there any of that going on?
Once I got to a particular point with AD and I had the day where I said some things that I did, mm-hmm. I told him like, I'm done dating other women because I felt like I crossed a particular threshold in terms of our conversation that would leave me susceptible if I was in dates with other women. Okay. And so I wanted to stop dating, and they kind of encouraged or influenced me to keep dating other women, even though I stated that as such. But I also knew what these people were capable of. Mm-hmm. And I always had concerns that they were going to portray something differently than what I was or what my intent was there. So I was trying to constantly protect myself. And I knew one way to do, like, hey, you've crossed this line. You've said some things that if you get intimate or have similar conversations, you could get, played back of being a manipulator or something to that extent.
Very interesting. They went on to say that you were kind of two-timing AD with Amber?
Yes.
Yes, with Amber, and replaying clips of you saying the exact same thing to those girls. Can you talk about what that was like seeing it on there, like on TV?
Seeing it, I wasn't surprised, but I don't think I said the exact same thing. I mean, everybody in there is having similar conversations, and AD and I reached a point where it was getting serious, and I was pressing her to leave the show with me mm-hmm. because I had concerns about what was going on at the show and the environment, as well as having her and I's relationship be a part of it. And I'm talking to her about like, hey, are you really ready for our relationship to be that much, in the public eye and being that high profile? Because I knew, me being who I am and who she is, that was a great marketing tool for them. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't want to be under their control any longer. She, to her defense, like, she was really committed to the experience and wanted to see it through. And when she made that commitment, I kind of took a step back from her because I'm like, well, I might not be able to give her what she wants. Mm-hmm. And what I want is to leave the show and find somebody who maybe is more committed to the relationship than the show. So once I took a step back after that's the next day when I had the date with Amber. And Amber's a very tough woman, and she's intelligent, and mm-hmm. I thought she was very wonderful. And she broke down in that date. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about family. It's something that we really connected with. Is so like the conversation that turned out to be very similar wasn't just like some process that I went through or criteria to put in there from
it wasn't part of your spreadsheet.
No, it wasn't. It was not part of my spreadsheet. I should have probably kept it going by that point.
I think what you're saying is it sounds like you were having very human conversations with people. Things were happening, people's emotions were changing, and you were reacting to it. but the way it was edited was other people are having to work around you changing your mind, whereas you experienced it in the opposite way. Am I getting that somewhat correct?
Yeah, and it's just when you're in there, the whole intent is try to like open up and do all these things. Mm-hmm. I probably went a little too far, but then again, you know, like AD 2 days later after I left the show, got engaged to another guy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was part of the experience. So I was a little disappointed to be criticized for something that I think everybody was doing, even though I don't think I ever crossed the line of respect of like telling two women that I love them, or, hey, you're my number one, and then telling another girl you're number one. I never did anything like that.
Right. There was a specific moral threshold that you didn't cross. So pods end. You end up with no one necessarily. You leave. What happens from there? And did you know you were going to get edited like that? Like, did you feel like you left on a bad note with Netflix when the pods wrapped?
No, I didn't. I mean, there were several times throughout the process where they did tell me that if you leave, we're going to paint you as a villain.
When was that?
I was there for 2 hours, and one of the producers told me that.
Wait, within 2 hours of you being there?
Yeah, because once I got, and I was doing the administrative stuff, it's just like any other job.
Yeah.
I tried to go to the bathroom, and they're like, you need to ask permission. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do this. That's ridiculous. And they kind of said, well, we can sue you if you leave for damages. I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. I probably should stay and stick it out. But yeah, multiple times that I tried leaving the show, they insinuated that if you do leave, that you will be the villain.
So not only that you'll get sued for damages, but you'll also be edited poorly.
Yes.
So you don't think that the edits properly highlight people's character? They properly highlight how much they worked with production in a nice manner?
I would say they just do whatever makes the most money.
Okay. So they were deceptively editing.
Yeah. And I mean, to their credit, I guess if you want to say that, I mean, it did work.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. Other castmates, though, they seem to be able to have communicated after the show aired. You see Jess on the File Files podcast. You see Chelsea on Reality Ashley's podcast. They're able to spill their whole lives out. We're recording this at the end of April, beginning of May. It's been a while since, everything happened, and you haven't spoken out kind of at all. I read through your contract. Someone else provided it to me, and I've read through the contract that you signed. To my understanding, you're not allowed to be sitting down and doing interviews. How does that work?
Well, they have a PR team.
Okay.
So I'm sure everybody that's a part of the experience that was shown is working with them to set up all these different interviews and promotions and things like that, but they never attempted to assist me in doing any of that.
Okay, so was there a certain threshold you have to make it past the pods and get engaged and you get a PR agent?
No.
Because there seems to be other people that weren't even on the show that have people that work PR for them.
I don't understand it myself, but I was never really contacted to do any interviews or anything like that.
Okay, but if you wanted to do an interview, do you have to ask? How does that work?
I'm not really sure. I didn't really, as it was all going on, I knew that my best path was to stay silent. Mm-hmm. Because of the story that I had to tell. So I just did that and waited and see how everything portrayed, because at least I would have all the information of what happened. But I mean, the reunion, I thought that I was going to go do that, but how do you put yourself in a situation when you know they're manipulating the content to a particular degree and put yourself back in that situation?
Were you asked to go on the reunion?
I was asked.
And you didn't do it?
I didn't.
Can you explain your rationale behind that?
Well, I mean, once they portrayed me in a way that was inappropriate and incorrect and false, and they're cutting and pasting sentences. I mean, mm-hmm. I didn't think it was in my best interest to go back into a situation where they would have the potential to do the same thing.
Okay. And during the reunion, AD said some things about you. She insinuated that you were manipulating her over the death of her father. That's a pretty heavy accusation. And then she also said in the same interview that she went on a date with you. What was that like for you?
Watching her do that?
Yeah, watching her do that. And you clearly liked her at some point.
I did. I still care for her. It's difficult. It's really awkward to have a strong relationship or connection with somebody and then watch them get engaged and live out their life with another person. And I was supportive of her throughout the whole time because I do want the best things for her. It's disappointing to see some of the things that she said because I think she knows the truth. But she also has a lot of people behind her probably encouraging her to continue to participate and represent the experience in a way that is beneficial to her as well as beneficial to them. So I understand that from her perspective. And there was no manipulation in terms of like the conversations with her father. I mean, I'm surprised more people are not having the conversation about what their family's perspective is about you getting engaged without any them being a part of it. They're just going to show up to this wedding that you just met this person a month and a half ago and be on camera and have these conversations, especially when you know some of the things that are going on here. It's just not something that I was willing to put my friends and family through.
Yeah. Okay, I want to pull up some of the contract because I have it in front of me. And there are just some things that stood out as interesting to me. This says, I further understand that my appearance, depiction, and portrayal in and in connection with the program or otherwise, and my actions and the actions of others displayed in and in connection with the program or otherwise, may be disparaging, defamatory, embarrassing, or of an otherwise unfavorable nature. You signed a contract saying that you were okay with that. Are you still okay with that? Do you regret that at all, signing that?
I think it was signing this stuff that I was leaving myself open to being portrayed potentially different than what I am or what happened. But a lot of what they tell you leading up to the experience is how it's not like that. It's supposed to be wholesome and for the right reasons. And I think you hear a lot of that with Nick Lachey at the end of the reunion, talking about the integrity of the show and how people need to be there for the right reasons.
Guys, I just want to say participating in Love is Blind, it's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Vanessa and I believe in it from season 1 on. You can see the results. Look around this room. Look at this couch right here. We do not want people to come here motivated by fame. That's not what this is about.
And they're doing it from a position of righteousness while also defaming people and embarrassing people. That's not on factual information. Do I regret it? I try not to live too much in regret. But I took on the challenge and did the best that I could. And now I'm here telling the truth and taking another risk.
Okay. So Nick Lachey made an example out of Trevor at the reunion. Do you think they would have done that to you in some way, shape, or form if you had gone on that reunion? Is that what you were not fearful of, but assumed would be the case? Was that they were just going to take you on in some way?
I would have assumed that they were going to show some of the the same conversation that they were suggesting that I was doing. But I wasn't really fearful of all that because I knew what I said and knew what I did. But I just think from a PR standpoint, it was in my best interest to stay silent.
Interesting. What made you want to break the silence, though?
I think I have a moral obligation to tell the truth because other people are going to be a part of this experience. There's people that have been in this past experience. There's even people a part of the one that I just went through that are going through some things. And a lot of those stories aren't being told.
Would you ever recommend this experience to anybody?
I don't know if that's for me to say, but if you're going to do it, I think you should watch this.
Yeah. I want to go over the compensation because I've gotten so many questions about this. So we have the compensation program structure in front of us, and we know that for the pods, you get about $5,000 to go in there and do that. Then you get an additional $2,500 for the getaways, $3,000 to come to reality, which is such a funny way of phrasing it. You get $1,000 for the wedding and $1,500 for the reunion. So you turned down the $1,500.
Yeah, I wasn't even paying attention to any of the money.
Okay. What were the incentives for people to actually get married, if any?
Well, they kind of insinuate that if you do things the right way or the way that they would want you to do them, then you will get the benefits of what would be the experience.
Yeah. Okay. So there's been a litany of accusations about Netflix behind the scenes being just treating people poorly. Can you attest to any of that? What's it like dealing with them behind the scenes?
Collectively, is some of the worst humans I've ever been around. And I know that's a very serious statement, but I mean, people just looking you dead in the face and lying to you consistently. And it's just, that's a very weird position to be in. And I protected myself the whole time. I never trusted them at all. Grateful that I did. I mean, the version of who I was in that experience was the version that I knew I had to be, in terms of like just being as quiet as possible, because every word that I said could be used in particular ways. But
even the words you didn't say, you walked out of a door one time and they edited it to look, they did, correct me if I'm wrong, they edited it to look like you were walking out in the middle of a date.
yes.
Did that happen?
No.
Are there any other examples of Netflix manipulating you, harming you, doing anything insane that you're just like, whoa, I want the world to know this?
Encouraging me to drink when I already told you that I was living an alcohol-free lifestyle, that irritated me. Mm-hmm. Now, if they would have had a 12-pack of Busch Lights, maybe that would have been my kryptonite, but that bothered me.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, especially not showing that as part of the show, like, I think it changes the perception of my intent in being there. Like, this is not just a frat party. I'm like really challenging myself to do this the best that I can and try to grow relationships and connect with these women. But the night dating to me was dangerous. I mean, sleep deprivation, of course, in stressful moments is something that I know psychologically is probably not in people's best interest. And some of these people are up at 8, 9 in the morning, and other people are in charge of you the whole day, and you're staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, all on film.
Oh, what was the timing of that like?
Just all day. And you really don't have a ton of freedom. And I was trying to encourage the guys and even the women that I was dating, like, I don't think you should night date. Like, you should probably go home at 9 o'clock and get some sleep and rest and, not be in this stressful situation. But they're very good at getting people to do things that they think are in their best interest. So I didn't night date, and everybody else did, but
correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like when you say they're here for the right reasons are being perfectly manipulated by the process, whereas your version or perhaps a moral version of going on this show looks different. And it looks like going on to meet somebody to see if you actually like them, connecting with them in a way that, okay, cool, maybe we'll play along with this version, we'll get to know each other potentially, but we're definitely not getting married. We know that for sure.
Yeah, I ultimately knew that I had a choice to make, because when they kind of threatened me with the villain, storyline, I'm like, oh crap, I better be careful because I don't want to give them that. So I was protective as much as possible. And I also knew that ideally they wanted me to get engaged and get married to AD, because that would have been excellent TV and great for ratings. And I just wanted no part of participating in that based on who these people were and what they were doing to everybody. And AD knew it too. Like, we're in there having intimate conversations and we're saying these things and I'm being heard. Like, they are listening to everything I say, and I'm saying things that are critical of them as we're doing this. Mm-hmm. So they knew where I stood in terms of what was going on wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I was more vocal about that than anybody else.
So it does kind of feel like they had a vendetta against you.
Potentially. I mean, I think everything they did, whatever would make them the most money, is priority number one. Do I think there's some secondary benefits from their perspective about what they did? Yes. I think they knew when I was in there that if anybody was going to tell the truth about the experience, that I was the most likely person to ever do it.
Do you ever make residuals off of this? No, so you just got the flat rate of what you went through in the pods and that's it?
Probably largest profit margin reality TV person ever.
So they're able to capitalize off of things that didn't happen in order to market to people that are quite unsuspecting of this.
Yeah, and I just think the way that they portray the show is it's not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about making connections and relationships and communication, and obviously the show, and I never watched it before I went on it, which is probably a mistake on my part.
Maybe.
But I mean, what do you do when you're in there? Like, you have so many, you only have 2 options. You don't have a cell phone. You don't have people you can talk to. You're under their control. They're telling you that if you don't do what we say, you're going to be a villain or we're going to sue you. If I do what they tell me to do, I know I'm basically playing into something that I know is inappropriate and wrong. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to be marketing for the very people that I think should not be getting that.
But now you're out of it. You've signed a contract that says, I can be disparaged and defamed in all these ways. Well, are you planning on suing Netflix?
No.
what was the hate? Like the show, obviously you filmed it in 23, right?
Mhm.
Then it comes out, it airs in 2024. What was the backlash like? Did you get any backlash?
Oh, it was horrible.
Oh yeah, explain.
I mean, the first day it came out and I watched it and like I knew what was true and what wasn't. So I probably had a different reaction than most people. But when they produced the clips on their social media with 35 million viewers of me walking out and their little captions and then the little conversation with Jess, I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Like I know I'm the villain now. And I was like, oh God, this is going to be bad. And certainly the next couple of days were horrible. But I mean, like anything in life, if you can always find a path through, if you do.
I mean, if there's any other thing you think of that's like, fuck that, I can't believe they did that, I would say it now.
See, the thing is like, it's not one thing.
Yeah.
It's just like,
so it's a pattern.
it's just a bunch of little consistent jabs. And one person's telling you one thing, another person's telling you another thing.
These are producers.
Yes. And they're constantly trying you to get moving in the direction that they probably want you to.
So it's not real.
I think it's a lot closer to professional wrestling than it is to real. I think what they do is they take people and they try to turn them into a character that they think is going to generate the most attention. And that's what they ultimately did to me, which once again, it worked, but it's certainly at the demise of my public reputation, which is incredibly difficult to stomach. To Google my name and see villain and serial killer and things of this nature, which is a fabrication of the truth. And they don't have any remorse. They don't care. They knew it wasn't true the whole time. When they would talk to me about it, they would constantly tell everybody, hey, we do the right things. We're just showing the truth. We're doing this for love and relationships. And these things are messy, but this is all for the right reason. So they're constantly barraging you with this gaslighting of the righteousness of their message. And for them to just come out and do that, and they never even warned me. Like, I didn't know that all that stuff was going to come out. It kind of just got blindsided. A lot of people probably didn't even think I was going to be on the show because I was only there for 7 or 8 days. And what you thought is if you didn't engage, you wouldn't be on the show. What
about Vanessa and Nick Lachey? What role do they play do the Lacheys play in any of this?
Nothing more than probably a figurehead. They probably just get paid to show up to do those little bits that they are, but...
So you don't really interact with them?
No, I never did.
Love is Blind has been over for a while. What does your life look like now?
It really hasn't changed much.
No?
I'm basically the biggest nerd ever.
So you didn't get that part wrong in the show?
No, that's all right. But I mean, I golf 3 to 5 times a week, dog sit, drink some NA beers.
Just a normal guy.
I'm just a normal dude.
Thank you so much for telling your story, because I think it's going to change hearts and minds on whether people should go on and continue to enrich people like this.
I hope so. We'll see.
Well, thank you.